All right. I think we're good to start. How do you feel, Julian?
Yeah,
I
sure.
did you see I just added the little snazzy new uprooted level design behind it?
It looks very good.
Thank you.
Looks professional.
That means a lot because I just think it looks like chicken scratch.
Yeah, that's why it looks professional.
True. It's like people say that doctors have, I mean, they kind of, I guess that stereotype kind of holds true, but people say doctors have bad handwriting. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe if I'm a good level designer, I'll have rough sketches. All right. You want to start, Julian?
Yeah, sure. So basically the tried and true method for making any level is to kind of these three steps or four steps. We kind of have two different versions of it. So take a fun idea or mechanic, make a bunch of variations on it, and then just kind of line them up in a fun way. Um, and Mark Brown, the Game Maker's Toolkit guy, made a video on this called where he makes it a four-step process where you introduce a concept in a safe environment. So you can't like die or anything. You just kind of are introduced to how it works. Then it develops that concept further. So that's all the kind of variations. And then there's a twist. So like something new is introduced or like some new element is added that makes it so you can't do what you've been doing before. And then you have a satisfying conclusion.
So let's get into examples about that. You guys ready? Are you sure you're ready? If you're not ready, speak now.
It's a pretty niche game.
Yeah,
You
I
might
don't
have
think
heard of
you've
it.
heard of it. It's pretty underground. I don't know if they're ready for this game. I'm trying to pull up the chat while I stall. I don't think anybody has ever heard of this game now that I think about it. Somebody say something in chat so I can pull up the chat room fast. There it is. Thank you. Why would it be Mario, Owen?
This is Luigi,
Yeah, it's Luigi.
but red.
Ooh, I wonder if I could get the zoom pointer thing. Come on, let me pretend to use zoom. More. Is it under, does anybody know if it's under annotate or more?
We can see our mouse cursor.
Oh, I guess that should be enough. Or yes. Oh my God. How did I change the color? Is it just gonna be blue? Ooh, okay. We've learned some things. All right. Ooh. All right. Welcome to learning with Kaylee and Julian. We're gonna look at the first level, and I can't click back right now, but we're gonna relate it to the four steps. So the first step is to move the zoom toolbar. Second step is to read introducing the concept in a safe environment. So why is this environment considered a safe environment? Well, if you look at not Mario over here, there's a whole lot of space before you get to that Goomba. So it gives you time to really take in the scenario. You'll start walking, you'll first see, oh, what's this? And then you'll start to wonder what this is. And it's already telegraphed by little angry eyebrows that this guy's not friendly. So uh you're gonna be weary of it. You might die there. There's a chance you could die there, but that's a quick way of you learning, hey, if I touch this, I'll die. You might be prone to jumping because by the time you get to it, I think there will be room to jump. I think that's how it works. I haven't played Mario in a second. But either way, there's a lot of stuff being introduced here in a controlled environment. Why else is this environment safe? Well, as you guys know, if you hit this block, that mushroom pops out. And what that mushroom does is it moves right first. As some of us who've played Mario, Julie, did you draw a smiley face?
What? No?
Does anybody see the smiley face at the top right?
Yeah, I
Did you
didn't do
do that?
that. Oh, is it? Can anyone annotate? Oh, yeah, it's because anyone can annotate for some
Is that
reason.
Chloe? Sorry to derail.
Jacob, Jacob Shaw.
Okay. I'm not hating it. I'm just acknowledging it. All right. Sorry. But yeah, it's controlled because as you guys know, maybe you've lost mushrooms in the past, but they can go off the edge. So what happens here is the mushroom goes right, falls down at the pipe, and then it goes back at the player. So that controlled environment does make it a safe environment still. How do I clear after annotating? Oh, there is a clear
Yeah,
button.
sure. Please don't scribble on the presentation.
Yeah, we are presenting.
Okay, actually, that's a pretty good drawing.
That is pretty good.
That's
But I
acceptable.
do have to clear all drawings. Wrap it up, Owen. That's good. Actually, can we get a screenshot of that and put it in chat? We'll make it an emote, but no more drawing after this. Tell me when somebody got the screenshot.
I got a screenshot. I'll put it.
Cool.
Put it in Discord.
But does everybody understand? Oh, I could do this first. Does everybody understand why this is a safe environment? Does anybody have questions about why it's a safe environment? I should also peek at chat. Makes sense. Okay. Jacob, was that I due to the question or just something else?
That was earlier, I think.
Oh, okay. It was earlier. All right. Next step. I go back to Google. All right. Now, developing the concept. So here we have a few more things being introduced. It's some of the same stuff we saw earlier, but reformatted. And it does actually introduce something new. So what we saw before and what we're familiar with are the Goombas, the mushrooms in the relationship to the question mark box. But you could see there's a little more danger here now because we're learning they can walk off the edges and land. There's also a chance that you might be able to go over here and jump at the same time that Goomba lands, and then the player can potentially learn how to kill enemies through punching the blocks underneath. But one of the things you should know actually between this drawing and this level part and the last level part is they're actually teaching a lot of things at once. Just something to keep in mind. But we're taking the elements we had earlier and slightly changing it to introduce a new concept to the player. Also, what's new to this part is the gap at the bottom right there. So I'm actually pretty sure this guy can walk off the edge and maybe show the player, hey, you probably shouldn't walk here because this guy walked down here and didn't come back. Don't know if you heard, but he did not return. Any questions about this part? Comments, concerns?
We're sorry for the spoilers.
The Mario spoilers?
Yeah.
How did the hole get there? That's a great question. That's for philosophy, because I can't answer that here. Add a twist. So there's some things over here. We know a few things. You could argue we added a twist in the last shot of the level because of the cliff there, but didn't mean to do that. I just keep getting trend micro security spawning and I keep trying to close it. Sorry. But to add a twist, what we're doing here, we are familiar with these blocks by now. We know that enemies are a thing. We don't necessarily know what this guy's story is about, but because of the Goombas and how it's moving, and we haven't really seen any other things moving, it might be easy for the player to assume, hey, that's an enemy. Because it did not come from the boxes either. And the only thing that was moving that came out of the boxes was the mushrooms, and we know that's good. But yeah, we can recognize maybe this is an enemy. and we see a lot of enemies. But what we also have here is the star power. So we're introducing to the player, hey, let's make you invincible for a moment. Wouldn't that be rad? And the player might not know exactly what the power does. They'll be flashing and music will be playing. They could try to avoid and like jump over everything still if they really want to. I'm not sure if this jump can be made. But either way, there's another route, traverse, which could teach the player more platforming. Or if they don't necessarily go up first, they can also go down, run into the enemy. They might not jump and notice, hey, wait, that enemy died without me jumping on it. And they might continue running into these other enemies and thus really understand what star power does. Also, we are being introduced to a lot more, a higher quantity of enemies here too. But yeah, does that part make sense? Adding a twist to a level. Cool. Feel like a ESPN spokesperson when I'm adding these drawings. Here's the play-by-play. All right. And then satisfying conclusion. I don't know why it's satisfying, but I will say it is satisfying to do that final leap. You're excited. You know, if you get, some people know if they get up here, they'll get a 1-up. So that jump just does get exciting for players. But as to how it gets exciting for new players, I think it's the whole like victory screen that follows it, because this becomes an icon for being the end of the level. It's a symbol like, hey, you did it, good job. And every time you're going up there, it's like an epic jump up, a little climb up. It's almost like that feeling where, like, you know, when you jump up to hit the rim of a door. I think that's what this is the equivalent of, honestly, because you are getting ready for the jump and you're trying to land at the top. Like, you're trying to run at the door, you're trying to pop the top. But yeah, a satisfying conclusion will give players closure to your level, and they'll feel happy. They'll feel like, oh yeah, I felt like a good amount of work was done. I feel like there was a beginning, middle, and end to this. Closure just leaves everybody happy. All right, Julian, your turn.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about Inside, which is a thematically very similar game to Mario. So anyone who's played it probably remembers the Shockwave level. Basically, there is a giant shockwave that will kill you if you're exposed to it. So there's no wall blocking you. So it's introduced. The introduction is actually really long because you can hear the shockwave throughout the entirety of the last level. But then here, you're introduced in a safe environment. So there's this box that you push, and no matter like the timing of your push, the box will always break from the shockwave before you like are able to run out. So you'll see that the box gets broken by the shockwave. You probably won't fare very well. So it's probably very deadly. And then on the next slide. So, and then it just introduces a lot of variations on sort of timing puzzles. So you have to pull up walls to protect yourself from the shockwave and time it out correctly. There's moving obstacles you have to get in the right like sign of cycle in order to protect yourself as you move around. There's a ramp you have to slide down, and you have to slide down at the right time, or else you'll be too far down it by the time the shockwave goes off. And then by the end, there's a satisfying conclusion where you finally get out and the shockwave slowly fades and you get into an elevator, and then it collapses, but that's a different level. So but so you can see like these are two very different games, yet they kind of have the same level structure where they kind of have an idea, they iterate on it, and then they end. So
now, I want to make a level. I want to do it. Think back to my days at Little Big Planet. Honestly, though, when I worked on Little Big Planet, I just kind of messed around with the editor without much motivation because I was 12. Stop judging me. Let me be 12. But yeah, you want to make a level, but you don't know where to start. How do I think of interesting ideas? Oh, you don't skip 2 slides. That's the first step. But go, Julian.
Yeah, so just like do something simple. I did this for Half-Life Alyx map I made a while back, and it can turn out really well. So like some Mario game levels literally are just based off one enemy. There's one example in the Mark Brown Game Maker's Toolkit video I referenced earlier. There's one level based around the like ant enemies that like crawl around on walls you can jump on, and that's like basically it. They introduced a few other things, but like basically the conceit of that level is like, what if ants? You could also just think of like more abstract themes, like just horror or verticality. So this is, Ravenholm from Half-Life 2, which is basically just the horror level. And there's the gravity gun too, but I think why people remember it is because of that aesthetic of horror. So you can just kind of think of like, what's a cool aesthetic, and just kind of go with that and see where that takes you. And if you think of enough variations, you can create an interesting level.
Another thing you can do too is focus on a mechanic. My battle block theater level is somewhere in this presentation where I worked on that for level design 420, cool course number. But the idea I went in with was I thought about the lava tiles in battle block theater, and those actually act more like a jump pad, and you don't really have to be afraid of them. And I was like, okay, what if the floor was lava and you did have to fear the lava blocks? So it could start from small, like, what if questions when it comes to playing with a mechanic in a level, and you use that level to explore your question. Yeah, you want to go, Julian?
All right. So the second thing you can do is combine two things. This is the Reese's approach. So just take two mechanics or two concepts or two enemies or any arrangement of those things and just put them together and see what happens. So like in Portal 2, this is really easy with puzzle games, actually, because usually they kind of have this naturally happen. So in Portal 2, you have these excursion funnels. Reese's? I said Reese's. Did I say Reese's? Can anyone confirm or deny that I said Reese's or Reese's?
I missed it. I think if we're talking about Reese's versus Reese's, I think I might say both depending on the situation.
If I said Reese's, I'm going to be so angry because I always say Reese's. That's
this
how I always said it.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Explore later.
Well, you don't call me out like that. Okay.
Hot in 4K.
Anyway, so Portal 2, they have these excursion funnels which like can carry you across like, over what's the word? Large holes in the floor. And then you have this gel that can make you bounce and you can put it through portals. So like what if you combine the two, you can make the gel flow through the excursion funnel, and then you can kind of pull out the excursion funnel from under it, and then it will fall and then go wherever you want it to go. And they make a few fun levels with that. So.
And keep combining things. So keep asking yourself, what if I take this element and see what happens when it interacts with this other element? But at the same time, I want to see it in this environment. Start playing with variables and start stacking them as you get more comfortable with what you're messing with. That way you could really push that mechanic as far as you can go. That's really the art behind level design, is seeing how far mechanics can go. As we saw in the Mario levels, there were multiple things being taught to the player at once. The mushroom, the Goomba, the movement of items and enemies, yeah, a lot at once. So every time you can figure out a smooth way to kind of teach players multiple things at the same time, that's a really cool design choice to make. Yeah. Laying out levels. Let's do this. How do we do this? Draw. Please draw. I love being the advocate for people drawing in this club. For the love of God, please draw. You'll have to do this in Level Design 420. You start out with a sketch. That way you can visualize your plan. This allows you to really just physically really think about your level and where to start. It takes a lot longer to just kind of guesstimate things and stuff in the level editor first. So I highly recommend you draw first, and you could also get crits and stuff from your drawing. You can see on the left, that's my Battle Block Theater sketch. I was thinking about movement. I was thinking about how the player might interact with things. Like I have a planned death actually in the beginning because I'm like, this is where I'm going to teach the player, hey, the lava is bad. I want my drawing tools back. Let's go. Okay. But yeah, here's where the player will die. They'll run into the block and then they'll hit the spikes and die. You start planning your little teaching moments, and then you can start visibly like combining things like, okay, they know this. They already know lava's bad. Now I'm going to introduce ice to the player and see how that combination works. And then I'm going to take the ice and I'm going to put it on different levels, knowing that if the player falls into the lava, they'll just bounce right back up to the spikes. So it's just thinking about like, hey, how do I keep adding things? And drawing the level out helps you do that a lot easier. That's not to say you can't have like the level editor open while you're drawing it out, so you could kind of visualize things a little bit more. Like, would this distance actually work this way? Could the player actually make a jump like this? So you can have the editor to test small stuff while you're sketching, but I highly suggest you sketch the level out as much as possible at first. Also, recruiters would love to see that in your portfolio if you do that. They do expect you to know how to draw levels. But yeah, that's my spiel about drawing levels. All right, here, all drawings, and then back to Google. In level design, there are 3 types of leading. When it comes to levels, that's the most important thing is, hey, we got to tell the player how to get from point A to point B. And those 3 types are avert, subtle, and then covert. Overt is the very, very obvious points on like how am I going to start this? If you've played COD or like Far Cry or any game that has objective points, there will be a marker on your HUD and it will say, hey, you're supposed to go here. And maybe you're like 155 meters from the objective. You know, hey, I just got to run there. And that's your motivation. That's your key to go, okay, I just have to keep going in this direction. I'll go over or around anything that's in the way. You know where you're supposed to go. Compasses can also be a type of leading when it comes to that, or mini maps. We'll go into more examples later, but avert is basically saying, hey, player, look here. I want you to look here and you're not gonna miss it. Subtle, on the other hand, can be missed. And surprisingly, signposts can go into this category because player can actually run past the signpost and they don't have to see it. A lot of the subtle leading types will have ways to really fit in the environment and actually might feel more sound to the world, again, like signposts. And yeah, we'll go over more examples in a bit. Covert is extremely subtle, where you might not even notice you're being led. Granted, we are game designers, so you might notice it a bit more than other players, but it can be something as simple as, oh, you're locked in a room, but you do see some light coming through a window in the room. And you're like, huh, how do I get over there? Is that window open? Can I break it open? You'll start asking those questions. Chat. Music can be a type of leading, Andy. That might fall into either subtle or covert. But yeah, let's talk about examples now. Overt examples. So it could be HUD markers, it could be maps, maybe damage indicators. So like if you think about, I guess I'm going to use Fortnite as an example, you'll get like a little circle of where bullets are coming from, so you sort of know the direction. And in some games you'll get an additional like arrow to go over it, so you know, oh, I am being shot in that direction from a person over there. Oh no. You could also say that the bullets or footsteps could be a type of leading, but those would be subtle. And then sky waypoints are a common thing in games. You might see, like, let's get the drawing tool back. Love drawing. You might see a little smoke signal, or sometimes in games there might be like, oh, look, it's a really cool beam. Oh, rad. I guess I have to go there. And also the player might say, hey, I gotta go over there to that smoking place. To emphasize, hey, go there, please. That's where you're supposed to be, player. But because we are putting that in the player's face, it becomes overt. All right, clear all drawings. Subtle examples. We're gonna go and talk about Mirror's Edge. You might also think you might also consider this an avert method, only because like it's so bold and you do know red is where you're supposed to be. But at the same time, I haven't played Mirror's Edge, but I don't know if you're directly told. Somebody can confirm. Are you?
You are actually.
You are?
Because it's like a setting you can change too.
Okay. But the other thing, though, the point that this does make is, hey, you can lead with colors. So in some games, I'm working on XDefiant right now at Ubisoft. One of the ways we tell players, hey, you could climb this is by putting a like piece of yellow at the top. So it could be like a yellow drape or something that fits the world, but still has that color code to say, hey, player, you could go up here.
Doom 2016. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Doom 2016 has some earthing for if you can grab onto a ledge or they want you to grab onto a ledge, it will have a green light on it. And that's pretty consistent throughout the game.
Nice. And then another thing is just signposts. The other thing about subtle leading methods is that they can also be part of the puzzle. So if anybody remembers this dungeon in the bottom right from Breath of the Wild, there's these constellations here. Sorry for dungeon spoilers. You have to look through something. Well, first you see there's a few slots that you have to fill here. And you can see very clearly from their position, oh, this is associated with, hold on, let me use another color. You can see this is associated with this constellation because of its position. So you're like, okay, there's these slots I have to fill with these orbs. What am I supposed to do with it? You see the constellation and stuff. You could actually go over, I think, yeah, there's an upper part in that area that you can look at that has, or this is the frame. There we go. There's a part up here that you could look at that has the constellations laid out. And you're actually supposed to count the constellations to figure out how many of these orbs am I supposed to put down here. But because you see this and you associate it with the constellations, it leads you to how to solve the how you're solving the puzzle. So that's a subtle way of doing things. You could also use enemies and stuff. Enemies are a pretty clear indicator that, hey, you're probably supposed to be here. And locked doors, because if a door is locked, that means, oh, there's definitely going to be a key somewhere, depending on the locked door. Because some locked doors are just locked because we don't want anything to do with them. We don't want to develop for those doors. We just want to have them. Yeah, I'm going to check chat questions real quick. Okay, cool. Well, any questions before I leave this slide, or about the last slide? Hot takes, comments? If not, we'll go into covert. So if I can click this, I can't click the slide yet. That's cool. It's cool. Cool. Covert examples. So this is kind of sneakier level design, and people actually use a lot of art principles in order to do this. So let's start with lighting. Lighting can be something that can really guide the player. We'll use, let's go back to, nope. Okay, go back to pink for our color. We're in a dark room in The Last of Us 2 up here. We're up here. And there's this window over here. And I'm trying to get through this room to get to the other side of a fence that's like blocking me on the outside. Little fence. There you guys go. Quick art. Naughty Dog, hire me. But yeah, we've got this window here, and it's just really shining through, and it's catching our eye. We're just drawn to look at it, and we're like, okay, what can I do with that? And then down in the bottom right, I don't know what game that is.
Uncharted.
Does anybody? I was thinking Uncharted, but I'm not sure. I think it looked a little too fantasy in the back for me to think it was Uncharted, but the characters make me think
it's Uncharted.
Cool. Confirmation. So it's Uncharted. You can see arrows were already drawn for me. That the player has different directional cues to say, hey, I'm supposed to walk over here. This could be done very tastefully. Learning how to lead with lines is a really cool skill. Definitely tricky at first because you'll have to design environments around it, but definitely a skillful way to move the player along. I honestly think one of the scenes in The Last of Us 2, it's not a spoiler, it's, well, I could say it without spoiling. It's a slight spoiler. There's a part where you're being chased by zombies. That's pretty vague. There we go. You're being chased by zombies, but you know all the right places to run. A lot of that comes from the leading lines in the level. And I honestly love that level segment so much because I did feel panicked and I did feel like I was frantically looking for the right way. And yeah, that's covert. You could also use audio here. Movement can help indicate things, like sometimes people will have birds fly in a direction just to make you turn your head towards that place. So it's all with finding ways to subtly mess with the player, where the player is looking. All right. And I did not get rid of the drawing tool. That's cool. All right, Julian.
Yeah, I'm back. So, so points of interest and landmarks. This is, I know Chloe did a short, what was it, game club thing about this. I wasn't able to attend, sadly, but it is a very important thing. Basically, you could kind of use landmarks as a way to kind of show where the player will end up. And these are like kind of different uses. So like these aren't all like the same landmark, but you can use these all for different purposes. So one way to use them is to show where the player will end up. So it's kind of a way to give them a sense of where they're going to be, where they want to go. Just makes the level feel more coherent. And you can also use it to give a reference point. So in that first example from Half-Life 2 Episode 1, there's this giant reactor orb thing in the center of this room, and you have to work your way around it. So as you go around this room, that's kind of a central focus of the level, no matter where you are. And that sort of adds to the third thing, where making a landmark makes your world feel a lot more consistent and believable, and gives a lot more meaning to what the player is doing, because it's not just going through random places doing stuff. It actually feels like you have a reason for doing things, because there's a interesting goal, or there's a place that you're moving around. It gives you a sense of space, sort of. And in that second example from Breath of the Wild, Breath of the Wild is a great game in terms of landmark use, because almost no matter where you are, you can see at least maybe 2 or 3 major landmarks from where you are. And that sort of can let you pinpoint your location without using a map. It always gives you something to do, essentially, like a mountain, a shrine, something important like the volcano. I can't remember the name of the volcano, but all these things kind of give you points of interest that you want to go and explore, and there is something there to reward you. And that's the second part. You should put something in these places. If you have like sort of more open experience, you shouldn't just make them and be like, that looks cool, and then disappoint the player when they get there. But
yes, that's something that's important to remember, is player expectations, which I didn't even think about making a slide for. Can I rant about this for a second, Julian?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So if you think about people who play games a lot, there's sort of a user expectation when it comes to certain things. And like Julian was saying, hey, if I see this cool thing, I'm going to go there, and there should be something cool there. You want to constantly give those players little rewards just to keep their motivation up. If they go there and there's nothing, they'll get disappointed. An example of this, right now I'm playing Eastward, and I really like the game, but I was also just playing Undertale. Undertale, there's a lot of things that you could walk up to, press A, and you can interact and get some text. Eastward, there's not as much of that, and that gives me a little disappointment, because I'm like, oh, what's this cool thing? I interact, nothing. It definitely makes the game feel a little more empty to me, even though there's a lot visually. Again, it's a beautiful game. But you want to feed those expectations. That way you don't have the player constantly disappointed. All right, Julian, was there anything else you want to say on this slide?
Not really, except Half-Life is good.
Thanks, Julian.
And that's right. I put 3 Half-Life in this. That's not a reference. Yeah, so the other sort of thing you can do with layout is you can loop back around to previous areas. And this is great because it means you can do less work. And players love it because it's, something they're familiar with, and it gives them a sense of space and all the stuff from last time, the landmarks thing. But you don't have to spend effort. So like in Half-Life 1, the first area of the game, the like sort of labs, is like acts as the intro. You have to go back through that entire thing after everything's destroyed. So that's another way you can sort of make it interesting, is by adding some new context or changing things a bit to sort of show the consequences of some event that just happened, or adding something new to the place. There's a level in Titanfall 2, the time travel one, where there's sort of an open area that starts off as sort of just the place where you start to get into the main part of the level, but you end up back there at the end, and this time there's hordes of enemies, and BT is there, and there's time travel, and it's nuts. But it's the same area, so you're familiar with it, which makes it a bit less intimidating. And also it just makes it a bit satisfying because you kind of end where you began, which is a bit thematically appropriate, actually. So yeah, so this is always a fun thing to do.
And now we'll take questions because that's our presentation. I'll
Yeah.
first read, if you guys have questions, type in the chat or raise your hand. I'll first read what Owen added in the chat, which was about player expectations. And they said, that happened with Pokemon Shield for me. In older games, you could walk up to most props and rooms and there'd be a little cool, if inconsequential, bit of flavor text. But now there's not as big of a reason to interact with the world. And yeah, games that give us a lot of interaction points do give us an expectation. Granted, if people don't play the same games, they're going to have different expectations. But yeah, that's something you want to consider. Also, considering other games' habits when leading, that could also help make leading in your game easier, as if you consider what other games do.
Also, interaction, like small interactions, is a pretty big thing with level design. I don't know if it's a big, but it's an important thing with level design that you should consider, is putting, small things in just to give a little interaction. I know I'm going to talk about Half-Life again. Sorry, just let's get level design. With Half-Life Alyx, because that's VR, they had to do that with a lot of things because of how people act in VR, they expected more out of the interactions and stuff. So there's a lot of just like levers and just objects you can pick up and like weird buttons and like doodads you can like kind of mess with.
Chloe added, this is why I love immersive sims. They condense the size of the world, but it's full of stuff to interact with.
That's true.
And Owen now wants to play Half-Life Alyx.
And I do too.
Ooh, okay. Joseph asks, how would you approach level design in roguelike games or games that randomly generate rooms/chambers? I assume each room would be a level, but thinking about every possible outcome would be a hassle when designing level progression as a whole. So I'm going to think about Going Under, which I love, and Hades, which I also love. What they do usually is design a room ahead of time, and that room is randomly loaded. Julian, if you know games that completely do it like a full new room, you could chime in. But I think what games usually try to do is design those rooms ahead of time, and they think about, okay, we're going to have these enemies. What are like the places where the player can hide and cover? What are the places where they might be able to take a pick? What are the places where we might get an extra stab at a player with a trap? So they'll usually come up with different elements, and then they'll think about layout. And they'll usually just design around, I think, the amount that they think is good for progression and kind of like the timeline of the game. That's, I think, one way of looking at it. Julian, do you have any input?
This might be obvious, but just like, I don't play many roguelikes, but from what I have played, usually the farther you get in, they have different like sets of rooms they draw from. So like you might have like an easier set of rooms for like the first areas, and then once you go down like certain areas or like up, or I don't know, however the progression works, it starts throwing more obstacles and harder enemies at you and stuff. And also layouts that maybe challenge you more. So
for sure. I know, definitely for sure. Those games will usually start with like easier layouts and definitely ramp up. I think Don't Starve is considered a roguelike, which is weird for me to think about, but it does have like the random generation stuff. But what they usually do consistently in that game is when they spawn you, it's around a bunch of helpful stuff and usually a bit farther from enemies, so the player can have an easier onboarding and like a relaxing onboarding. So that's definitely a consideration, is what are we throwing the player in, and kind of a biased randomization, like, oh, we're going to randomize this, but it's going to pick from these circumstances. And then somebody added, I know Mark Brown had a video about Spelunky and how the dev made different rooms and used different combinations of those rooms to make the level.
Yeah, just watch all of the Game Maker Toolkit videos.
And then Joseph says, gotcha. It's mind-blowing that games like Binding of Isaac have hundreds of rooms, but each room feels balanced and fun. Yeah, if they have hundreds of rooms, they might have a bit more, I would hope that they did that on the random generation side a little bit more, but they have usually consistent points that they try to hit with each level in order to, and they probably use those points and base it off of their randomization. Any other questions? We'll wait for chat. Or talk about games that you think have good game design. Or level design. Throw it in the chat.
What's your favorite level?
I do think mine might be that one from The Last of Us, which I don't know. I've played a lot of games. It's just I liked the emotions that I felt while running through that level. I wish we could have talked about environmental storytelling a little bit more, but
Yeah.
level design definitely helps with that. And you can use movement through your level and like space as well, or colors, in order to push the story or narrative that's being told. That's something you should definitely consider when you're making your levels, especially if they're based around stories.
You could probably make an entire new presentation just around like kind of environmental storytelling and that kind of stuff.
That would be fun.
That'd be a good one for the future.
Sohail said Super Metroid Zero Mission had some amazing level design, especially the way it guides you through the world while also making you feel like you're exploring. That does always feel good. Yeah. Again, Julian's point about Breath of the Wild was really good about landmarks. Each landmark you found, you'd probably find another one looking from that landmark.
Yeah.
And that kept it feeling interesting and kept like the exploratory feeling going.
It's definitely a very different thing developing a more open game versus like a more linear one.
For sure.
Because with more open ones, you kind of have to think about that kind of exploratory factor. Although you could do it, I guess, like Zero Mission. I guess Metroid games are a bit less linear, but yeah. If you want another good example, Outer Wilds does that really well.
Joseph says the first level in Super Mario Galaxy seems to do a great job when teaching a very new gameplay in new platforms. Walking in spheres, for example. I agree. That game was so good.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like a, weirdly, I'm going to use the word magical game to play, especially with Mario, because I don't think many of us thought, oh, what if Mario in space? I was thinking about that game earlier today, and I kind of want to replay it now, to be honest. Somebody said, let's see, can I scroll up and see their name? Andy says, I think Hextech Mayhem has a very good design overall. I like that it has two different kinds of leading. It has arrows that you have to get, so you do not lose. But also the music guides you if you are more of a completionist and want to get as many points as possible. Yeah, sound does for sure lead the player. Especially in multiplayer games. Like the moment you hear footsteps, you get tense. You're like, okay, I think I hear somebody coming from this direction. For sure, it leads. And also, if you are deaf or hard of hearing, usually what the substitute for leading player then is usually UI with directional indicators. So the player can still be led through the similar cue, but through a different display. Owen says, I really wish I'd asked my parents to get me Super Mario Galaxy. It was really fun, and I only played it at my cousin's house, even though my family had a Wii too. Ah, I'm sorry.
I only played Galaxy 2 because the sequel, so it's better, right?
Honestly, it was a solid sequel from what I
Yeah, I
remember.
mean, people, it was missing the like really sad Rosalina story,
Yeah,
which is like, I'm sad I missed out on that.
they totally could have had something into that could have been cool. They really did say, hey, let's use Rosalina once and then we're gonna stick her in every party game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish they used their other characters a bit more. You're talking to somebody though who wanted to make a hypothetical game for Peach, and then Nintendo was like, "Screw you, Kaylee. We're making an origami Paper Mario, not you." I was heartbroken when they did the reveal.
Peach does need a game though, and not that like 1DS one they gave her.
Yeah, that one can. I feel like there's. I mean, I haven't played the game. I think I've heard good things about the game, but the
They're mixed
emotional based
things.
powers
Yeah,
for
that too.
your woman character is
Yeah,
a little
just like
I don't know.
freaking Mario gets kidnapped, Luigi's Mansion style. Mario gets kidnapped. Peach doesn't save him because screw that. She just does whatever. Girl
She
boss. No,
doesn't.
sorry.
Just a girl
No.
boss at my game dev club meeting. How dare you? God. But I know she has like cooler moves too. Like I played a little bit of Bowser's Inside Story, and like she throws Bowser against the wall at one point with like the power of something else, and I was like, oh, that's
Oh yeah, in the
awesome.
RPGs, she's like great.
And in Super Paper Mario, you got to play as Peach, and she was like sassy, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But no, Peach doesn't get to have a personality anymore. I'm not salty. Welcome to my TED Talk.
Anyway, this got off topic, but
Any
it's
other
important.
favorite level design things?
Oh yeah, I do want to mention, it is impossible to get people to look up in a game, like in a 3D
Well, there's
game.
ways. You just gotta be good at leading.
No, it's
like
impossible. There's
you
no
can get
way.
you can get people to look up with birds.
No, they won't
Have a
do
bird
it.
on the ground,
There's
and
gonna
then
be there will be someone who just will never look up, and then like you're just screaming at them, like look up. You just have to look up, and the answer's right there, and they won't do it. They'll never do it.
yeah, go off. Big arrow pointing up. I agree. Yeah, neon arrow is pointing up. Yeah, everybody, call Julian out.
Yeah, they'll try to interact with the arrow 15 times, and they won't look up.
Try to interact with the arrow. Okay, Julian, I'm gonna design a 3D game just so I could prove you wrong and be like,
All
look,
right.
the player's looking up.
If you can make everybody who plays your game look up, then you win.
Okay. Bet.
$10.
Chloe said, actually, something that happened in the Res 8 demo made me realize something. Drop something down from above and they'll look up. Yeah.
Oh, that actually is clever. That's smart. What if they miss it though? What if they're like not looking at the thing dropping?
Sound cute, Julian. Fudger. Cutscene. There we go.
Okay, what if you don't want a cutscene? Because it's Half-Life and you don't get cutscenes.
Half-Life.
Not many. Not like in the middle of like gameplay, like you suddenly don't control your character.
Everyone wants cutscenes, period. Andy, can you go into detail about that? Andy says, actually, Horizon Zero Dawn also has a very good design on its cauldrons. Is that something you have to look up for? Are we proving Julian wrong still? If not, I still want to hear more about it. But
actually, this is just a scheme to get all of your ways to get people to look up so I can steal them and use them for my levels.
Shut up, Julian. We just want to kick you in the shins.
Owen said, kind of like a pipe. You generally have to look up with that.
Let Owen say. Owen said, if there's a thing you need to climb up like a pipe, you generally have to look. Yeah, you generally have to look up with that. There's bits in both Mirror's Edge games where you have to do that. There we go. Ladders, mother fudger.
All right.
All right. I'm trying to see the time. My laptop won't let me.
It's
It's
8. So
we did it. Our presentation took up the whole time. All right. So that's it for the presentation tonight. Next meeting will be December 2nd, and that will be our last meeting for the semester, our season finale. If you want to look at it that way. Yeah, so our next meeting is December 2nd. If you guys want to meet in the chat for 1 more hour for project sharing, we'll be in the Discord. Come flex your levels. That would be really cool if you showed off your levels. Oh yeah, Chloe says if you want to hang out on Thanksgiving, we have the Discord. Our Discord is honestly a pretty active community. I mean, if somebody started doing this again, it would probably catch on, but we used to have people hang out in voice just casually, and work and stuff. And eventually other people would trickle in. So yeah, disown our family or disown your family, join our cult. Chloe, we're not a cult. We can't have people believing this still. Okay, but yeah, we're gonna go into the chat with project sharing. I might flex a level I was recently working on for Uprooted. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the Discord. Unless anybody's not in the Discord, speak now and I'll send you a link. Speak now. I think we're all in. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. See you at project sharing.
see ya.
Farewell.